The first death threat arrived on a Tuesday morning, slipped under the mahogany door of Katherine Bishop's corner office, while she was reviewing quarterly reports for her luxury hotel empire. Zander Jameson stood in the hallway outside that same office 3 days later, arms crossed over his chest, wondering why he'd agreed to this job. He'd spent the last 5 years doing private security for diplomats and hedge fund managers, and he'd been looking forward to a month off. Instead, his former military buddy had called in a favor, insisting that Katherine Bishop needed the best, and that Zander owed him one. The favor was legitimate. Zander couldn't say no. "She's going to hate this," the assistant said nervously, a young man named Marcus who kept adjusting his tie. "Miss Bishop doesn't believe she needs protection. She thinks the threats are just pranks." "Then why did her board of directors hire me?" Zander asked. "Because the third letter was specific. It mentioned her daily route to the office, the coffee shop she stops at, even the name of her dog." Marcus grimaced. "The board overruled her. She's furious about it." The door opened before Zander could respond. Katherine Bishop stood in the doorway, and Zander felt something shift in his chest that had nothing to do with professional assessment. She was 32 according to the file he'd read, with dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and sharp green eyes that were currently fixed on him with obvious irritation. She wore a gray suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent, and she held herself like someone who'd fought for every inch of respect she'd earned. "You must be the babysitter," she said coolly. "Bodyguard," Zander corrected. "Zander Jameson." "I don't need you, Mr. Jameson. This is a waste of everyone's time and a considerable amount of money that could be better spent elsewhere. Your board disagrees. My board is overreacting." She stepped back into her office, clearly expecting him to follow. Zander did, taking in the space with professional efficiency. Floor-to-ceiling windows, 2 entry points, limited cover. He hated it already. "The letters mention specific details about your life," he said. "That's not a prank. That's surveillance. It's someone trying to scare me, probably a disgruntled employee or a competitor playing mind games." Katherine sat behind her desk and turned her attention to her computer screen, dismissing him. "I've been running Bishop Hospitality for 8 years. I've dealt with much worse than threatening letters. Have you dealt with someone following you home, photographing you through your office window?" "Because that's what specific details mean, Miss Bishop. Someone is watching you." That got her attention. She looked up, and for just a moment, Zander saw a flicker of unease cross her face. Then her expression hardened again. "1 month," she said. "The board insisted on 1 month of protection. After that, you're gone, and I go back to my normal life." 1 month, Zander agreed. "Starting now." She stood abruptly. "I have a meeting across town in 30 minutes. I assume you'll be following me like a shadow. That's the job." Katherine grabbed her briefcase and coat, moving with brisk efficiency. "Try to keep up, Mr. Jameson. I don't slow down for anyone." The first week was tense. Katherine treated Zander like an inconvenient piece of furniture, acknowledging his presence only when absolutely necessary. She kept a punishing schedule, starting at 6 in the morning and rarely finishing before 8 at night. She toured hotel properties, met with investors, reviewed architectural plans for new developments, and somehow found time to personally respond to guest complaints that escalated to her desk. Zander stayed 3 steps behind her during public appearances and swept every room before she entered. He drove her to appointments in an armored sedan that she'd complained about for the first 2 days. He stood outside her office, sat in the corner during meetings, and generally made himself as unobtrusive as possible while remaining alert. He also watched her. It was his job to watch her, but Zander found himself noticing things that had nothing to do with security. The way she rubbed her temple when reviewing financial reports. How she always ordered her coffee black, but added cream when she thought no one was looking. The genuine smile that transformed her face when she walked through one of her hotels and spoke with the staff, remembering names and asking about their families. On Friday evening of that first week, Katherine stayed late reviewing contracts. Zander stood by the window scanning the street below when she finally spoke to him voluntarily. "Why did you take this job?" she asked. "A friend called in a favor." "That's it. You're spending a month following me around because of a favor." Zander turned to look at her. "I'm spending a month keeping you alive because someone is threatening you, and I'm good at what I do." "I looked you up," Katherine said, setting down her pen. "Marine Corps, multiple tours overseas, half a dozen commendations. You've protected ambassadors and executives in war zones." "I'm a hotel CEO dealing with threatening letters. This must be incredibly boring for you." "Boring means safe. I like boring." She almost smiled at that, almost. "The staff thinks you're intimidating." "Good, that's part of the job." Marcus asked if you ever smile. "When there's something to smile about." This time she did smile, just a little. "You're very serious, Mr. Jameson." "Zander," he said. "And yes, the weekend was worse." Katherine worked from home on Saturday. A penthouse apartment with terrible security that Zander had immediately upgraded with additional cameras and a reinforced door. She'd argued about the expense until he'd shown her how easily someone could bypass her existing locks. Then she'd gone quiet and approved everything. Sunday morning, she emerged from her bedroom in jeans and a sweater, looking younger and more relaxed than Zander had seen her all week. "I'm visiting my sister today," she announced. "She lives in Connecticut. We're having lunch. I'll drive you. It's 2 hours away. Then we should leave soon to avoid traffic." Katherine studied him for a long moment. "You really don't take time off, do you? Not for the next month." Her sister lived in a comfortable colonial house with a husband and 2 young children, who immediately attached themselves to Katherine the moment she walked through the door. Zander waited in the car, monitoring the quiet suburban street and trying not to think about how Katherine's entire demeanor had softened when her niece and nephew hugged her. An hour later, a woman who looked like a younger version of Katherine knocked on his car window. He rolled it down. "You must be the bodyguard," she said cheerfully. "I'm Claire, Katherine's sister. Come inside. We have more food than we can eat and my husband wants to meet you." "I'm fine here, thank you." "Katherine said you'd say that." "She also said to tell you that refusing hospitality from her family would insult her, and she's stubborn enough to fire you over it." Claire grinned. "She's bluffing, probably, but do you really want to risk it?" Zander found himself sitting at a dining room table 20 minutes later, accepting a plate of pot roast from Claire while her husband, David, asked polite questions about his work. Katherine sat across from him, looking both amused and slightly embarrassed. "So you follow my sister everywhere?" Claire asked. "Even to family dinners? That's the job. Must be exhausting for both of you." Claire looked between them with obvious curiosity. "Katherine, have you been giving him a hard time? You have that look." "What look?" Katherine asked defensively. "The one you get when someone tries to help you and you hate it. Remember when you broke your ankle and refused to use crutches? That was different. You hobbled around your office for 2 weeks rather than admit you needed assistance." David laughed. "She's not wrong." "You're terrible at accepting help, Kat." Katherine shot Zander a look that clearly said she blamed him for this situation. He kept his expression neutral, but something inside him warmed at seeing her like this, relaxed and teased by people who loved her. The drive back to the city was quiet. Katherine stared out the window as evening light faded into darkness. "My sister likes you," she said eventually. "She's nice. She's nosy. She texted me 3 times during dessert asking if you were single. Zander's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. Are you warning me away from your sister? What? No, Claire's happily married. She was asking for me. Katherine's eyes widened as she realized what she'd said. Not that I was asking. She just assumed, because we're spending so much time together, which is work. Obviously. Obviously, Zander agreed, fighting something that might have been a smile. They didn't speak for the rest of the drive. The second week started with a problem. Zander was running his morning security check when he found fresh scratches on the lock of Katherine's office door. Someone had attempted to pick it, recently enough that the metal shavings were still bright. He called Katherine immediately. Don't come to the office. Stay in your apartment until I clear the building. What happened? Someone tried to break into your office last night. There was a pause. Then quieter. You're sure? I'm sure. Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone but me. He cleared her office with building security and the police. Nothing was missing, but someone had definitely attempted entry. The security footage showed a figure in a maintenance uniform and a baseball cap, face obscured, working on her door for several minutes before giving up and leaving. When Zander finally arrived at Katherine's apartment, she opened the door immediately, and he saw real fear in her eyes. This is actually serious, isn't it? She said. Yes. She let him in, closing the door behind him. She'd changed into professional clothes, but her hair was still down, falling past her shoulders in a way that made her look vulnerable. I thought I was being smart, dismissing this as corporate games, she said. But someone actually tried to break into my private office. We're increasing security protocols, Zander said. No more late nights alone, varied routes to and from work. I'm going to need access to your personal schedule, all of it, not just business appointments. Katherine nodded, then sat on her couch, looking shaken. Zander sat across from her, giving her space. Have you ever been afraid? She asked suddenly. Yes. What did you do? I did my job anyway. Fear is just information. It tells you something is dangerous. Then you plan accordingly. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time since they'd met. Is that why you're always so calm? Because you've planned for everything? I try to. Does it work? Usually. Katherine smiled faintly. That's not very reassuring. I'm not here to reassure you, I'm here to keep you safe. Zander leaned forward slightly. But for what it's worth, I'm very good at my job. Whoever this is, they're not getting near you. Something shifted in her expression. Trust, maybe, or the beginning of it. Okay, she said softly. Okay. They worked from her apartment that day. Katherine took video calls and reviewed documents while Zander coordinated with the police investigation and upgraded her building security. He ordered lunch from a restaurant he'd vetted, and they ate in her living room while she explained the complexities of hotel management and the politics of her board of directors. The company was my father's, she said, picking at her salad. He built it from 1 hotel to 15 before he died. I was 24 when I took over. The board thought I was too young, too inexperienced. They tried to push me out. But you stayed. I fought. I proved myself. I worked 18-hour days for years. I expanded to 23 properties across 8 countries. I tripled our revenue. She set down her fork, and I still feel like I'm constantly proving I deserve to be here. Is that why you won't take the threats seriously? Because it feels like giving in? Katherine looked at him, surprised. Maybe. Partially. I've spent so long refusing to show weakness. Accepting protection isn't weakness, Zander said. It's strategy. Is that what you tell yourself? It's what I know. She studied him with those sharp green eyes. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more, I don't know, aggressive, overbearing. You're quiet. You watch everything, but you don't push. Would pushing work with you? No. Then why would I do it? Katherine laughed, a genuine sound that made something warm unfurl in Zander's chest. You're smarter than you look, Zander Jameson. I look smart. You look like you could break someone in half. I can. But I'm also smart. She laughed again, and Zander realized he liked making her laugh. He liked it more than he should, considering they had a professional relationship that would end in 3 weeks. That evening, as sunset painted her apartment in gold and orange light, Katherine's phone rang. She answered, then went very still. "Who is this?" she demanded. Then, "How did you get this number?" Zander was at her side immediately. He gestured for the phone. She handed it over. "This is Zander Jameson," he said calmly. "Who is this?" Heavy breathing on the other end. Then a voice, distorted by a modulator. "You can't protect her forever." "I don't need forever. I just need to protect her long enough to find you, and I will find you." The line went dead. Katherine was pale. "They have my personal cell number. We're changing it, tonight." Zander was already texting his contacts. "And we're moving you to a hotel until we resolve this." "One of my hotels?" "No, somewhere else. Somewhere they won't expect. I can't just disappear." "I have meetings, property tours, reschedule them." "Zander, Katherine." He said her name firmly, and she stopped. "This person just proved they have access to your private information. That means someone close to you is either involved or compromised. Until we know who, we minimize exposure." She took a shaky breath. "This is really happening." "Yes, but I meant what I said on the phone. I will find whoever this is." He held her gaze. "Trust me." After a long moment she nodded. "Okay, I trust you." The hotel was a boutique property in a neighborhood Katherine rarely visited. Zander registered them under false names and swept the suite twice before allowing her inside. It was smaller than her apartment but comfortable, with a living area and separate bedroom. "I'll take the couch," he said. Katherine stared at him. "You're staying in the room." "Until we catch whoever is doing this, I'm not leaving you unprotected." "That's..." She trailed off, looking overwhelmed. "That's above and beyond a normal security detail, isn't it?" "There's nothing normal about this situation." She sat on the edge of the couch, and Zander saw how exhausted she was, the fear and stress finally catching up. Without thinking, he sat beside her. "My father used to say that being strong meant never showing fear," Katherine said quietly. "He taught me to be tough, to never let anyone see weakness, and I've lived that way for so long." She looked at Zander. "But right now I'm scared and I don't know how to hide it anymore." "Then don't," Zander said. "You don't have to hide anything from me. Because it's your job to protect me. Because you shouldn't have to be strong alone." Something flickered in her eyes, vulnerable and raw. "I've been alone for a long time. You're not alone now." They sat in silence, close enough that Zander could feel the warmth of her beside him. He knew he was crossing a line, letting things get personal when he should maintain professional distance. But he couldn't seem to stop himself. Katherine Bishop had worked her way under his defenses without even trying. "Tell me something about you," Katherine said. "Something real." "I feel like you know everything about my life and I know nothing about yours." "What do you want to know? Why did you leave the military?" Zander was quiet for a moment. "I lost someone, a friend. My best friend, actually. We were on a mission that went wrong. I was supposed to be watching his six, but I got separated from the unit for 30 seconds. That's all it took. 30 seconds and he was gone. That wasn't your fault. Maybe not. But I couldn't stay after that. Every mission, every operation, I kept thinking about those 30 seconds. So I came home, started doing private security, and I promised myself I'd never lose another person I was supposed to protect." Katherine's hand found his, her fingers lacing through his. "Is that why you're so serious? Because you're carrying that weight, probably. You're allowed to let it go, you know. You're allowed to forgive yourself." Zander looked at their joined hands, then at her face. Are you allowed to let go of always having to prove yourself? She smiled sadly. I don't know. It's been my whole identity for so long. Maybe we're both too stubborn for our own good. Maybe. They sat like that, hands linked, until Katherine's head dropped onto his shoulder and her breathing evened out in sleep. Zander stayed awake, watching the door, and tried not to think about how right this felt. The investigation intensified. Zander worked with the police and his own contacts to trace the threatening calls and letters. They narrowed down the suspect pool to 3 people. A former employee Katherine had fired for embezzlement, a competitor who'd lost a major property bid to her company, and a business partner who'd felt cheated in a past deal. Katherine threw herself back into work, insisting she couldn't hide forever. Zander coordinated with her security team to implement new protocols. He personally vetted everyone who came within 20 feet of her. He reviewed footage, traced phone records, and slowly built a case. They fell into a rhythm over the next week. Zander drove her to early morning meetings. Katherine bought him coffee, remembering after a few days that he took it black with 2 sugars. They had lunch together, sometimes in her office, sometimes at restaurants where Zander could sit with his back to the wall and watch the exits. She started asking his opinion on things beyond security, showing him architectural plans for new hotels, telling him about difficult negotiations with city councils and zoning boards. Why hotels? He asked one afternoon, genuinely curious. Because they're spaces of possibility, Katherine said, her face lighting up. People come to hotels during transitions. Weddings, vacations, business trips, new beginnings. I like being part of that. Creating spaces where people can become whoever they want to be, even if just for a night. That's not what I expected you to say. What did you expect? Something about profit margins and return on investment, she laughed. Those matter too, but they're not why I love what I do, she paused. Do you love what you do? I'm good at it. That's not the same thing. Zander considered. I love the problem solving, the planning, knowing that I'm the reason someone stays safe, but the job is lonely. It's always temporary. I'm always leaving. Do you want something permanent? The question hung between them, loaded with meaning neither of them acknowledged. Sometimes, Zander admitted. Katherine held his gaze for a long moment. Me too. That evening they were driving back to the hotel when Zander spotted a car following them. He'd noticed it 3 turns ago, keeping a consistent distance. We have a tail, he said calmly. Katherine tensed. Are you sure? Yes. Hold on. Zander took a series of quick turns, confirming the tail. Then he called his police contact, giving their location while simultaneously losing the following vehicle in downtown traffic. By the time they reached the hotel, the car was gone, but Zander had gotten a partial plate number. Katherine was shaking when they got inside the suite. This is escalating, isn't it? We're getting close to identifying them. They're getting desperate. What if they do something before you catch them? Zander moved in front of her, his hands on her shoulders, solid and grounding. I won't let anything happen to you. You believe me? She looked up at him, and the space between them felt charged. I believe you. His hand came up, almost of its own accord, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Katherine's breath caught. They were standing too close, the professional boundary completely dissolved. Katherine, Zander said, his voice rough. I know, she whispered. This is a bad idea. Terrible idea. You work for me. Technically, I work for your board. Still complicated. Very complicated. Neither of them moved away. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you, Katherine admitted, and I know I shouldn't. This is just proximity and stress, and Zander kissed her. It was a terrible idea, a complete violation of professional protocol, and he didn't care. Katherine made a small sound of surprise. Then her arms were around his neck, and she was kissing him back with all the intensity she brought to everything else in her life. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Zander rested his forehead against hers. "That was really unprofessional," Katherine said. "I know. We should talk about boundaries, probably." Later, he agreed and kissed her again. They spent that night talking, curled up together on the couch. Katherine told him about taking over her father's company at 24, about the weight of carrying his legacy while trying to build her own. Zander told her about growing up in a small town in Montana, about joining the military to see the world and finding a purpose in protecting people. "What happens at the end of the month?" Katherine asked as dawn started to lighten the sky. "I don't know," Zander admitted. "My contract ends. You go back to normal life." "What if I don't want normal life?" He pulled her closer. "What do you want?" "I don't know yet. But I know I don't want you to leave. I have 2 weeks left on the contract. Then we have 2 weeks to figure this out." The breakthrough came the next morning. Zander's police contact called with news. They traced the partial plate to a rental car company. The car had been rented by someone using fake ID, but security footage from the rental location showed a face. A face Zander recognized from his background research. "It's Gerald Morrison," he told Katherine, showing her the photo. "Your former business partner." Katherine stared at the image. "Gerald? We dissolved our partnership 3 years ago. It was amicable." "Apparently not as amicable as you thought. He filed a lawsuit against you last year claiming you stole proprietary information. It was dismissed because it was baseless. I built my expansion strategy completely independently." Katherine shook her head in disbelief. "He's been doing this, all of it. The police are bringing him in now. It's over." She sagged with relief, and Zander caught her, holding her steady. "It's really over. The threat is over. You're safe." Katherine pulled back to look at him. "And your contract ends in 2 weeks, like we said." "Unless I extend it. Unless you extend it," Zander agreed carefully. "Is that what you want?" "I want you. Not as my bodyguard, just you." Something fierce and warm bloomed in Zander's chest. "I want that too." "Then stay. Not for the job, stay for me." "For how long?" Katherine smiled, the first truly unguarded smile he'd seen from her. "How about forever?" The arrest of Gerald Morrison made headlines. Turns out he'd been harboring resentment for years, convinced that Katherine had stolen what was rightfully his. The investigation uncovered months of surveillance, increasingly threatening letters, and plans that had been escalating toward violence. Zander had stopped it just in time. Katherine spent a long day at the police station giving statements. Through it all, Zander stayed beside her, no longer her bodyguard but something far more important. When they finally returned to her apartment that evening, she turned to him in the doorway. "I need to ask you something serious," she said. "Okay. What do you want? Not just with me, but with your life. Because I need to know if we want the same things." Zander had been thinking about this question for days. "I want to stop moving. I want to build something that lasts. I want to wake up next to the same person every morning and know that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "I want that too," Katherine said softly. "I've spent so long building my company, proving myself, but I don't want to do it alone anymore. I want someone who sees me, really sees me, not just the CEO or the legacy or the success. Someone who likes me even when I'm stubborn and difficult." "You're not that difficult," she laughed. "Liar." "Okay, you're very difficult. I like it." Katherine stepped closer, her arms sliding around his waist. "Stay with me, not in the hotel, here in my life, really in it. I don't have a job anymore. Your contract is fulfilled. So find a new job or don't. I make enough money for both of us. I'm not comfortable being supported." "Then consult. Start your own security firm. Do whatever you want." She looked up at him, serious now. I'm not asking you to give up your independence. I'm asking you to build a life with me, whatever that looks like for both of us." Zander kissed her, long and slow and full of promise. "Okay. Okay, I'll stay. Forever." The transition wasn't seamless. Zander officially ended his contract with Katherine's board and spent 2 weeks closing out his other business obligations. Katherine moved back into her apartment and dove back into running her company with the same intensity she brought to everything. But now when she came home, Zander was there. They cooked dinner together in her kitchen, a sight that amused both of them given their respective skill levels. They talked about their days, about hotel expansion plans and security consulting opportunities. They argued about movies and politics, and whether it was reasonable to check the door locks 3 times before bed. "You're paranoid," Katherine said one night, watching him check the windows for the second time. "I'm careful. There's a difference. Gerald is in jail. The threat is over. There's always another threat." She came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Then I'm glad I have you to protect me." Zander turned in her embrace, his hands coming up to frame her face. "You don't need me to protect you. You're the strongest person I know, but I'm glad I get to be here anyway." "Me too." 3 months after the arrest, Zander officially launched his security consulting firm. He specialized in executive protection and corporate security, and his first client was Bishop Hospitality. Katherine insisted on hiring him to audit security across all her properties, a job that would take months and give him the professional foundation he needed. "This isn't charity," she said when he argued about the ethics of her hiring him. "You're the best at what you do, and my company needs the best. It's good business. It's nepotism. It's smart hiring. Now stop being difficult and accept the contract." He accepted the contract. 6 months in, they settled into a rhythm that felt like forever. Zander still woke up sometimes in the middle of the night, compelled to check the apartment to make sure Katherine was safe. She'd wake with him, pulling him back to bed, reminding him that they were safe, they were together. Everything was okay. They traveled together when Katherine toured properties, and Zander assessed security while she met with hotel managers. They visited her sister's family for Sunday dinners, where Claire took entirely too much pleasure in pointing out how happy Katherine looked. "I told you he was good for you," Claire said one afternoon while they were alone in the kitchen. "You barely met him before deciding that. I saw the way he looked at you, like you were the most important thing in the world. You needed someone who saw you like that." Katherine smiled. "I really did." The proposal happened on an ordinary Tuesday. They were in Katherine's office after hours, reviewing security footage for a new property in Seattle. Katherine was arguing about the cost of upgraded cameras when Zander interrupted her. "Marry me," he said. Katherine stopped mid-sentence. "What? Marry me? I know it's only been 8 months and we probably should wait longer, but I don't want to wait. I want forever with you starting now. You don't have a ring." "I have a ring. I've had it for 3 weeks. I was waiting for the right moment, but then I realized every moment with you is the right moment." He pulled out a small box, opening it to reveal a simple diamond ring. "Katherine Bishop, will you marry me?" She stared at the ring, then at him, then back at the ring. "You're serious?" "Completely serious. We argue constantly, I know. I work too much, I know that too. I'm difficult and stubborn and terrible at asking for help. Katherine, I know all of this. I'm still asking." Her eyes were bright with tears. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." Zander slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms. She was crying and laughing at the same time, and he held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Because she was. "I love you," Katherine said against his chest. "I don't think I've actually said that yet." "You haven't." "Well, I do. I love you so much it terrifies me." "Good, I'm terrified too." Zander tipped her face up to his. "I love you. From the first week when you were being impossible, I think I knew then." "That's ridiculous. I was horrible to you." "You were scared and covering it with anger. I understood that." She kissed him, soft and sweet. "How did I get so lucky? I ask myself the same thing every day." They got married 4 months later in a small ceremony at one of Katherine's hotels, a historic property in upstate New York that she'd personally restored. Claire was the maid of honor, and Zander's friend from the military, the one who'd gotten him the bodyguard job, was his best man. "I owe you everything," Zander told him before the ceremony. "If you hadn't called in that favor, I would never have met her. You're welcome. But you did the hard part. You made her fall in love with you. I'm still not sure how that happened." "Maybe you should stop questioning it and just be happy." Zander was happy. Deliriously, completely happy in a way he'd never expected to be. Katherine walked down the aisle in a simple white dress, her hair down, her smile radiant. When she reached him, she took his hands and whispered, "Hi." "Hi," he whispered back. They said their vows in front of 50 people, promising love and partnership and forever. When the officiant pronounced them married, Zander kissed his wife like she was his whole world, because she was. The reception was elegant and joyful. They danced, ate cake, and listened to toasts that ranged from heartfelt to embarrassing. Claire told stories about Katherine's childhood that made her blush. Zander's military friend revealed that Zander had called him after 1 week on the job to say he was in trouble because he was falling for his client. "1 week," Katherine said later, laughing. "You knew after 1 week. I knew when you fell asleep on my shoulder in the hotel suite. I knew this was something different. I knew when you sat with my family and didn't complain once, even though you hate being off duty. I don't hate it anymore. Not with you." They honeymooned in Thailand, staying at a resort that wasn't part of Katherine's company so she could actually relax. They spent 2 weeks swimming, exploring temples, and lying on the beach. Zander taught Katherine how to body surf. Katherine taught Zander how to stop scanning for threats every 30 seconds. "You're allowed to just exist," she said one evening as they watched the sunset. "Not everything is a mission. Old habits. Then we'll build new habits together." They did. Over the next year, they built a life that balanced both their needs. Katherine continued running Bishop Hospitality, expanding into new markets and winning industry awards. Zander grew his security firm, hiring a team and establishing a reputation as the best in the business. They bought a house in Connecticut, close to Claire's family. It had space for an office for each of them, and a yard where Zander insisted on installing probably unnecessary security measures. Katherine humored him because she knew it made him feel better. They hosted family dinners and game nights. They traveled for work and pleasure, sometimes together, sometimes separately, always coming home to each other. They argued about politics and whose turn it was to do dishes, and whether they should get a dog. They got a dog. A German shepherd that Zander trained in basic protection commands and Katherine spoiled with expensive toys and gourmet dog food. They named him Atlas. 2 years into their marriage, Katherine came home with news that changed everything. "I'm pregnant," she said, standing in their kitchen with a hand on her stomach. Zander froze in the middle of making dinner. "You're pregnant. 3 months. I waited to tell you because I wanted to be sure everything was okay, and it is. The doctor says everything looks perfect." She bit her lip nervously. "Are you happy?" He crossed the kitchen in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. "I'm terrified and happy and completely overwhelmed. Yes. Yes, I'm happy." "We're going to be terrible at this," Katherine said, laughing and crying at the same time, probably, "but we'll figure it out. You always say that. Because it's always true. Pregnancy was an adventure." Katherine worked until her doctor insisted she slow down at 7 months. Zander drove everyone at his firm crazy preparing for the baby, installing security systems in the nursery that probably violated several reasonable boundaries. "You can't put a camera in the crib," Katherine said, exasperated. "What if something happens? Then we'll hear her on the baby monitor like normal parents. The monitor could malfunction." "Zander, I love you, but you're being insane." He removed the camera from the crib. He kept the ones in the corners of the room. Their daughter was born on a spring morning, 6 weeks before Katherine's 36th birthday. They named her Sophia Claire Jameson, and she was perfect. Tiny and red-faced and absolutely perfect. Zander held her for the first time and felt something shift permanently in his chest. This was what forever looked like. This small person who depended on them completely. This family he'd built with Katherine. "She has your eyes," Katherine said from the hospital bed, exhausted but smiling. "She has your determination. She's been kicking and fighting since minute one. She's perfect. She's perfect," Zander agreed. They brought Sophia home to a house filled with flowers from friends and family. Claire had stocked their freezer with meals and left a note telling them to call if they needed anything. Zander's military friend sent a tactical baby carrier that Katherine found both ridiculous and endearing. The first few months were exhausting. Sophia didn't sleep unless someone was holding her. Katherine struggled with breastfeeding and cried from frustration and hormones. Zander walked the house at 3 in the morning, bouncing a screaming baby and singing off key lullabies, but they figured it out. Slowly, messily, but together. Katherine learned to ask for help, instead of trying to do everything herself. Zander learned to relax his need for control and accept that some things couldn't be planned or secured. They celebrated Sophia's first birthday with a party that was probably too elaborate for a 1-year-old. She smashed her cake with enthusiastic destruction while her parents and family watched with amusement. Atlas sat patiently beside her high chair, waiting for dropped food. "Can you believe this is our life?" Katherine asked that evening, sitting on their back porch while Sophia slept and Atlas dozed at their feet. "Sometimes I still can't believe you said yes when I proposed. I can't believe you agreed to stay after that first month. I was so terrible to you. You were protecting yourself." "I understood that." Katherine leaned against him, his arm coming around her automatically. "I never thought I could have this. The career, the family, all of it. I thought I had to choose. You shouldn't have to choose. I know that now because I have you." She looked up at him. "You know you're stuck with me forever, right? No escape. That was the deal from the beginning, you just didn't know it yet." "When did you know, really know?" Zander thought about it. "The night you fell asleep on my shoulder, you trusted me enough to let your guard down. I knew then that I'd do anything to keep earning that trust. You earn it every day, so do you." They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. Somewhere inside, Sophia stirred and made soft baby noises before settling back into sleep. Atlas's tail thumped once against the deck. This was forever, Zander thought. Not just the big moments, the proposals and weddings and births, but these quiet evenings, this ordinary perfect life they'd built together. This was what he'd agreed to protect Katherine for 1 month to find. This was what he'd spent that month convincing her they both deserved. "I love you," Katherine said softly. "I love you too. Forever. Forever." Years passed in a blur of activity and joy. Sophia grew into a bright, curious child who inherited her mother's determination and her father's protective instincts. She announced at age 4 that she was going to be either a hotel owner or a superhero, possibly both. Katherine and Zander agreed that either option seemed achievable. Katherine's company continued to grow. She opened properties in Tokyo, Dubai, and Barcelona. She won awards for innovative hotel design and sustainable business practices. She gave interviews about being a female CEO and balancing career with family, though she always emphasized that she couldn't do it without support. "I have a partner," she told one journalist. "A real partner who shows up every day. That makes all the difference." Zander's security firm became the industry standard for executive protection. He hired veterans and trained them personally, building a company culture based on respect and excellence. He still did occasional field work, though Katherine worried every time. "I know you're careful," she said one evening before he left for a 3-day assignment, "but I still worry." "I always come home," he reminded her. "You better. Sophia and I need you." He kissed her goodbye, kissed his sleeping daughter, and promised to call every night. He always kept his promises. They celebrated their 10th anniversary in Paris, leaving Sophia with Claire and David for a week of romance and room service. They visited museums and cafes, walked along the Seine, and remembered who they were as a couple before they were parents. "Do you ever miss it?" Katherine asked one evening over wine. "The simplicity of the beginning. When someone was threatening your life and you hated having a bodyguard," she laughed. "Okay, maybe not that simple, but before we had so many responsibilities. When it was just us figuring things out." "Sometimes," Zander admitted, "but I wouldn't trade this, not for anything, me neither. Though I do miss being able to sleep past 6 in the morning. Sophia will be a teenager eventually, then we'll never see her before noon. Terrifying thought." Katherine raised her glass. "To 10 years of marriage, to however many more we get, to forever." "To forever," Zander echoed, clinking his glass against hers. When Sophia was 8, Katherine made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She stepped back from day-to-day operations at Bishop Hospitality, appointing a COO and transitioning to a chairman role that required less constant travel and pressure. "I've been running at full speed for 20 years, she told Zander. "I'm tired, and I'm missing too much of Sophia's childhood. I don't want to do that anymore." "Are you sure? The company is your life." "No, it's not. It was for a long time, but my life is bigger now. It's you and Sophia and Sunday dinners and school plays. The company will be fine without me micromanaging every decision." "What will you do with your time?" Katherine smiled. "I have some ideas. Remember how I said I wanted to focus on sustainable hospitality? Maybe I'll start a foundation, consult on green hotel development, teach at the university. You'd be amazing at any of that. I'm ready for something new. Something that lets me be present for the people I love." She launched the Bishop Foundation for Sustainable Hospitality the following year. It funded research, provided grants for environmentally conscious hotel development, and trained the next generation of hospitality professionals. Katherine threw herself into the work with the same passion she'd brought to running her company, but on her own terms and schedule. Zander scaled back his own work as Sophia grew older, spending more time at home and less time traveling for clients. They'd built something that lasted, both in their careers and their marriage, and now they got to enjoy it. Sophia was 12 when she first asked about how her parents met. "Dad was Mom's bodyguard," Zander explained. "Someone was threatening her and I was hired to keep her safe." "And you fell in love?" Sophia asked, clearly finding this romantic. "Eventually," Katherine said, smiling at the memory. "Your father was very professional, very serious. I thought he was just doing his job." "I was doing my job," Zander corrected. "I also happened to fall completely in love with my client, which was extremely unprofessional. But Mom loved you back, so it was okay. Eventually, yes. It took some convincing." Sophia looked between her parents thoughtfully. "That's actually really romantic." You protected her, then convinced her to keep you forever." "Something like that," Zander agreed. "I want someone who looks at me the way you look at Mom," Sophia announced. "All intense and protective, but also really soft." Katherine laughed. "You have plenty of time to find that, sweetheart." "No rush, I know. But when I do find it, I'll know because you taught me what real love looks like." After Sophia went to bed that night, Katherine found Zander on the back porch, their usual spot for late-night conversations. "Did we do okay?" she asked, settling beside him. "Raising her. Teaching her the right things. I think we did great. She's smart, kind, confident. She knows she's loved. She is loved, so much." Zander pulled Katherine closer. "Remember when I showed up at your office 14 years ago and you called me a babysitter? I was such a jerk to you. You were scared and hiding it with attitude. I understood. When did you know you wanted to stay? Really stay beyond the contract?" "The second week. When you let me see the real you, not just the CEO armor, I knew then that I'd do whatever it took to be part of your life." Katherine tilted her face up to his. "Best decision I ever made, saying yes when you asked me to keep you. Best decision I ever made was taking that job, 1 month that turned into forever." "Forever," Katherine agreed, kissing him softly. They sat together under the stars, wrapped in each other and the life they'd built. Inside, their daughter slept peacefully. Atlas was curled up at the foot of Sophia's bed, protecting her even in sleep. The house held years of memories and the promise of years to come. This was forever, Zander thought. Not the dramatic moments, though those mattered too. But these quiet evenings, this steady, enduring love, this family they'd created from a temporary security contract and mutual stubbornness. He'd agreed to protect Katherine Bishop for 1 month. He'd spent that month convincing her to let him stay, and she'd given him a lifetime, rich and full and more than he'd ever imagined possible. "What are you thinking?" Katherine asked, reading his expression in the darkness. "That I'd do it all again. Every moment. Everything that led us here. Even the threatening letters and car chases, even those, because they brought me you." Katherine laughed softly. "You're such a romantic under all that tough guy exterior. Only with you. I like being your only exception. You're not my exception. You're my rule, my constant, my forever." Smooth talker. "I learned from the best negotiator in the hospitality industry." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the moon rise over their backyard. 14 years of marriage, 15 years since they'd met, and Zander still felt the same way he had that first month. Like Katherine was the most important person in the world and protecting her heart was his greatest mission. "Come to bed," Katherine said eventually, standing and offering her hand. Zander took it, letting her pull him up. "What would you do if I still insisted on checking all the locks twice?" "Love you anyway. Some things never change. And you're okay with that, Zander." "I fell in love with a hypervigilant former Marine who took his job way too seriously. I knew what I was getting into." She squeezed his hand. "Besides, I'm hypervigilant about different things. We balance each other." They walked inside together, checking on Sophia one last time before heading to their own room. Atlas opened one eye, confirmed everything was normal and went back to sleep. In bed, Katherine curled against Zander's side, her head on his chest. His arm came around her automatically, holding her close. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too. Forever, forever." It was the same exchange they'd had countless times over 15 years. It never got old. Some promises were worth repeating. Katherine fell asleep first, her breathing evening out into the rhythm Zander knew as well as his own heartbeat. He stayed awake a little longer, watching her in the moonlight filtering through their bedroom window. 1 month. That's all it was supposed to be. 1 month of professional security work, then on to the next job. But Katherine Bishop had changed everything. She'd challenged him, trusted him, loved him. She'd given him a home, a family, a purpose beyond just surviving, and he'd kept his promise. He'd protected her, not just from external threats, but by being the partner she needed, by showing up every day, by choosing her over and over for 15 years. The next morning, Zander woke to find Katherine already up, making breakfast in the kitchen. Sophia was at the table, doing homework that was probably due that day. Atlas was stationed hopefully near the stove, waiting for dropped bacon. "Morning," Katherine said, smiling when she saw him. "Coffee is ready." This was it. This ordinary, beautiful, chaotic morning. This was everything he'd fought for, worked for, stayed for. "Morning," Zander replied, kissing his wife's temple and ruffling his daughter's hair before pouring coffee. Sophia looked up from her math homework. "Dad, can you help me with this problem?" "Sure thing, sweetheart." Katherine watched them work through the equation together, her expression soft. When Zander caught her looking, she mouthed, "I love you," across the kitchen. He mouthed it back. 1 month had turned into 15 years. 15 years had turned into a lifetime. And if Zander had his way, this lifetime would stretch on forever, filled with ordinary mornings and extraordinary love. That's what forever meant. Not grand gestures or dramatic moments, though those had their place, but this daily choice to show up, to love, to build something that lasted. Katherine Bishop had hired a bodyguard for 1 month. She'd gotten a partner for life. And Zander Jameson, who'd taken a job as a favor to a friend, had found the home he'd been searching for without realizing it. Forever started with 1 month. But it was built in moments like these, breakfast and homework and stolen glances across a sunny kitchen. This was forever. And it was everything.